Oggi parliamo di musei a casa. Benvenuti e benvenute sul Museo di Ixelles Podcast, l'unico podcast al mondo che parla esclusivamente di educazione museale. E benvenuti e benvenute in questo 2025 con un primo episodio dell'anno piuttosto esplosivo, direi, esatto, perché non potete immaginare, insomma, io per questo episodio sono veramente euforico, come direbbe qualcuno, un grande, insomma, del web, e io non vorrei fare troppe introduzioni, non vorrei spoilerarvi troppo, perché questo episodio parlerà di qualcosa che è per noi, per tante persone, completamente fuori di testa, ovvero un museo a casa delle persone. In che senso? Ascoltiamo l'episodio di oggi e scopriamolo con l'ospite di oggi, Stephanie Masuy del Museo di Ixelles a Bruxelles, che ci racconterà un po' come un museo viene portato avanti da un dipartimento educativo, nonostante questo museo sia chiuso da diversi anni, che insomma è qualcosa che mi manda completamente fuori di testa. Bene, chiaramente io sto registrando questa introduzione in un secondo momento, quindi vi lascio a questo dialogo con Stephanie. Ci vediamo alla fine dell'episodio con insomma le ultime cose che vi dico come sempre. Bene, buon ascolto! And so here we are with Stephanie Masuy, or Masuy, I didn't pronounce it well, but now you will pronounce it well for me, at Museum Ixelles, but Ixelles, it means Ixelles, right? Or I am wrong?
It's the Ixelles Museum here, and my name is Stephanie Masuy.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. And that's my first bad figure of the day, so we can continue. Hi, Stephanie. I really want to thank you for you to. In reality, I am the guest because I am inside the museum, so you're actually welcoming me here, and I really thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. That's nice to have you here, and as we have a closed museum at the moment, we are always happy when we have people coming to us. So thank you.
And that's why I am here, actually, because this museum, even if it is closed, it's very active. So we are gonna talk a lot about museum education today. And before starting with all of that, I just need to ask you this, because it's a staple question that I have to do to everyone. So who are you? Because I had the occasion to know you, but maybe people that listen to this podcast don't know you. So who are you, and how did you end up doing this job, for example, and everything else?
Well, I'm Stephanie Masuy. I'm here. Actually, I'm head of education at the Ixelles Museum, and I'm also a national correspondent of ICOM SICA Belgium. I can say that I think that really museum education is a passion for me. What could I say? I discovered the art museum quite late. Like when I was 16 years, I was at a linguistic trip in the Netherlands, and we had a lot of museum visits, and it was the first time that actually I enjoyed a museum visit. And all of a sudden I discovered that it was maybe something for me, because my family was not so interested in art, so it was really like a discovery. And actually I wanted also to share that with other people. So at the very beginning I was more interested in museum in general and in tourism, but then I've landed at the Brussels Museum Federation, and then it was really just like, oh wow, it's so exciting what we all can do with museum, how we can create, for example, connections between people with museums. At that moment, for example, I was responsible of the late evening openings here in Brussels, also the Museum Night Fever, all these kind of events that help, I think, to just to open the doors of our museum. And then since then I never, that passion was in me. So that's a little bit part of me now.
Well, that's very interesting. When you were talking, one of your colleagues just saw us. They started laughing. But that's the best part of being here. So, next question that I want to do, but it's just another simple question because I think it's important to have this kind of information before we start digging inside the real motive that, I mean, something came here, no? I'm here for a reason. And before actually diving inside the main topic, that is the educational activity of the museum, I wanted to ask you, what is for you museum education?
Well, museum education is for me really try to connect people to museum objects, art, I don't know, but also connect people also together within the museum, connect people to artists, to lots of things. But and I heard, for example, Aline from SMAC, who had a little bit that same idea of, and I recognize me in that. And I think it's really that idea of connection, but maybe also to give some keys, just to show that the museum are really accessible on very different ways. Because I'm actually I realized that if we want to open the museum to very large audiences, it's really by having very different kind of approaches that we can hope to welcome a very diverse audience too. So maybe also just to give that key, and also just the signal that museums are really open for on different ways and for very different people also.
I can totally agree, and also this is one of the main things that we usually talk about inside this podcast, but that's also why I think this museum was making something very amazing, because the museum, as you were saying before, actually it's closed. So it's incredible that I'm talking about all of this educational activity that now you were talking about too, but from a closed museum. And you were also talking about the fact that museum education, it's like open to the people, creating relation. But for me, it's amazing, and it's the most amazing thing that I discovered when we first met, about the fact that this museum is closed. Because, for example, something like this in Italy would completely break everything, because the museum is closed, so we can't make anything. And for me, it was like totally astonishing. So I want to talk about before everything else about this, how a closed museum actually can relate to the people, and now people after that relate also with the museum. No, because you have a very peculiar situation here. It's not like every kind of museum. It's a completely unique situation that doesn't stop the museum.
Yes, I think when you have a quite long closure, it's really our case. We are closed since 2018 now. Actually, you really have the opportunity as a museum team to have really a closure activity, and that's what we decided here. So we had traveling exhibitions all around Europe, but as a mediator, I was of course looking for new ways to approach other audiences than when we are open. And one of our first concern here was actually to approach the local community, because when we are open, sometimes we see that our neighbors sometimes don't know that we are here, that we exist, what we are doing here. And we thought it could be an interesting focus to work very local during the closure. And at that moment, so in 2018, there was a district program here in the neighborhood. and the possibility of having funds from there, and also to play a very active role in the local community here as as part of that program. And so we had at that time a very nice partner for an exhibition for children then, when we were still open. Their name is Patrimoine à roulettes, Heritage on Wheels, I would translate it. And then this is really a team of very different kind of profiles, artists, mediators, people really handy. And actually we met around the table, and we thought, okay, there is the opportunity to have a very big project here in the neighborhood during 4 years. What's amazing for a museum educator, because very often you have like short-term project, and then we really need to make something very impressive. I mean, that let's leave an impression really in the neighborhood. And that's how we came like with a brainstorming to that a little bit crazy idea to ask neighbors if they would like to host an artwork at home for a weekend and to present it also to the public. So not we as mediators being there and explaining, and just the house being like a decor, but really like okay, they will just really explain and also create a story, personal narrative with the artwork. And that was that idea. So we were just like walking in the street, knocking on the door, and explaining to people, okay, do you want to have an artwork at home? We had very funny trench coat, like gray trench coat, like a Burberry one, and we opened it with artwork inside, just showing that, like exhibitionists or art exhibitionists, I would say. And we were like explaining, okay, we have artwork at the museum, you can have it. And then we had that action during 4 years, and afterwards we applied for the European prize, the Art Explorer Award, and we won this. So it was a surprise for us, because there were big institutions like the V&A and so on who won that prize, and we thought, okay, we just have to try. It was COVID, everything was possible. So in our room we were writing the paper, and then we sent it, and we could win 50,000 euro just to continue the action. And actually now it is finished since December 2023, and we have had like 90 neighbors in the neighborhood. Who had at one moment for a weekend an artwork at home to show to their neighbors, but also friends, and also like the museum audiences that were very happy also to find their artwork back during the closure of the museum. So that was really an amazing experience, and very touching also to see how we were so well welcomed in all the houses here in the neighborhood. Even people who found us really too crazy for them, they were just like laughing, and they explaining that they were just like thinking, okay, it's just a nice way. It's the first time that the museum comes to me and explain me also what it's doing, what is why it exists, and so on. So it was also a very nice way to engage like dialogues with the local community, and so that's the story a little bit of Museum at Home here in Ixelles. And now there are other museums now doing that. Like for example, Jan Kuenen Museum in the Netherlands is doing that action also, and Musée in Oostende here in Belgium did it also once. But Jan Kuenen, it's really each year that they're continuing the Museum at Home. So that's nice also to hear that.
You know, the first thing that comes to mind when you hear a project like this, I mean, at least I guess for every Italian museum, it would be the first question that would come up. It could be, how could you manage the preservation of the artwork, because you know, people are always so pressured just for maybe an exhibition outside of the city. How do you manage the pressure of having an artwork inside a house of a person that maybe it's not their job? I mean, they're not creators, they're not just people that work inside cultural fields. So did the museum or maybe any kind of administration staff ended up, and how do you make it? Because I mean, it is, I think it's one of the craziest and greatest idea to have a real engagement with the territory and really create a community that works together. But how can you manage it? Because you know, it seems like something for me, for example, if I think Museum of Naples, I think that could be something impossible, not just because there are a lot of archaeological museums, so archaeological stuff is much more fragile, but even for contemporary art museum, I can never imagine something like this.
Yeah, so when we had that brainstorming with the Patrimoine Roulette team, that was really our first question as museum professionals. We said, okay, the idea is just great. It's very actually simple, but it's also quite an evidence to put an artwork back in home. But because some of these artworks were also designed to be in a home, actually. But then we just called our insurance, and then when they were like reacting like it was a totally normal question that we were asking, then we had something like, okay, maybe do we have, like, as museum professionals, so many, you know, like, how, I don't know, barriers maybe to make things simple sometimes. But actually they said, no, it's sometimes also you have loans outside museum institutions. And we say also, yes, they just ask, for example, that the artwork won't stay during nights in our neighbor's home during that weekend, so it came back each day, just to avoid, for example, that the people had to stay with the artwork and so on. And it was actually much better for them because it's quite an intense weekend for them. So there were a few things, like also we couldn't, we had to make a selection, and we choose for, of course, artworks which are not too fragile or have no conservation problems, just to avoid, of course. But it's just like common sense.
Yeah.
So actually it was much more easy and simple that we would have expected, and that's why I think it's really transferable to other museums. And that's also why we wrote a lot about that action. We spoke a lot about that during conferences, because we're really enthusiastic, just to see also how it is to speak and to talk about the museum and art within a home. It's totally different than when you debate about that in your museum, in your institution. Then the people are less complex to say all the critics they have sometimes about the institution, but these are also very constructive matters for us as museum professionals, and we could have really also interesting debates with the audiences there. So I just recommend to do that, and if the insurance say yes, I mean, that's possible.
Yeah. I hope also Italian museum can maybe take something from this, because I think we really need to improve how the museum participates in the community, the city, the citizenship, and the neighborhood. And I mean, it's impossible to get a museum out of the territory, because it's part of the territory, also within the building. So I mean, starting from the building. A project like this can also teach how to really interact with people, and also because the museum here, the museum is closed. Of course, the only way to make people feel at home inside the museum, it was the reverse, the completely reverse thing. So you made the home a museum. So it's, for me, I still need to process this kind of information. But this is not the only project that the museum has continued to make with the educational activity, and I want to share something about also another project. But you would say that maybe you will tell me maybe there will be a lot more project that in those years you continue to carry, or maybe even some other project before those years that museum were closed. And I want to talk about the one of the latest, which was le musée en herbe. No, we
Musée en plein air, so like museum in the green or museum in the grass. It's difficult to, even in French, it's a little bit a funny name, but the idea is really to be active in local parks during the summer. So we had really like a tour of the parks, like 7 different ones, each week a different ones, and the idea was really to go there in the afternoon and to tell people just meet up and don't make a reservation, don't, just if the sun is there we will be there. And then we had like board games, just really simple games that all the children know very well, but all customized with our art collection, of course, and like a memory, or like who is who, I don't know, qui est in French, like a twister. You can do a lot of things with your art collection, and actually then we were there in all the parks really touring. So sometimes there were people just following us from one park to another because they knew we were there the week after. And when it was raining, then we had like a partnership with local youth association. It was for us also during the closure a good way to explore a little bit that field, because we need also this kind of context when we reopen, and we were happy to go there and to say, okay, if it's raining, we can come in your place and just also like make an animation with board games with your children or your young. Yeah, so that was a little bit the idea of Musée en plein air, and we would hope to continue this next year maybe. So yeah, just like now making the evaluation of the project, but it was really interesting because most of the time we want diverse audiences coming to our museum, but what we learned from the closure is just also go to people, just meet them where they are, and try to connect with them where they are. And it's also very interesting, and we hope, we are very we just really wondering what it will be at the reopening, if it will have an impact. We hope it will, but I think even when we will be reopened, it will be necessary to continue to go to the people, to invite people, and also to just to have interest for what they are doing also in their own organization. I think it's but therefore you need time. So I know that it's not so easy when you are open, but as we were closed, that was really a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, that was just the other question that I wanted to make, because of course the first thing after all that we say that come to mind is that, okay, you did all of this because the museum is closed, or maybe you think that with the museum open the thing would be different. And of course, as you were saying, it is important to continue to create this relation with the neighborhood, but of course with an open museum you have a lot more opportunities, and of course you have also less time to spend in this kind of activities. And I wanted to say also another thing about this kind of project, and I wanted to ask you something just more personal maybe for you. It's I think it's amazing how the educational department, or usually here in Belgium, I discovered that it's more like participatory department than educational, because we are really talking about a relation and participation with the people, which is of course one of the main things that we always need to have in mind. How much the educational department was important for this museum, I mean in a period that it was closed, but also before it, because you don't have those kind of maybe level of importance in every museum of how education actually can improve not only the museum itself in educational department, but also I mean, for the entry of people, for the relation with the territory, also with political, social stuff that maybe can happen. So, which was the role of the educational department? I mean, for saying very short, it was a very important key role just because the museum was closed, or it was important even before and it will be also after?
It was already important before. It's not a start as we are closed, but we are a small institution. Like, for example, we are 14 people working here, and for education, since one year we are 2, but I was alone during 13 years. So I mean, it's really a small scale, I would say. But that's also interesting to have small scale, because I think what's the advantage is that we have here, we have a director who is very, very concerned about the audiences, and she doesn't want to have an empty museum or only a museum for art connoisseur. It's totally not her thing. When we have like children activities, in the past she came with her children, and it was very important for her to see how they could enjoy the activities here. So I think it's quite easy when you have that good connection with your director, and I know that a lot of colleagues don't have that. So I think I'm really privileged here, and my colleague Chloe too. So we know that, and then it makes a lot of things possible. And also we are a municipal museum from the municipality of Ixelles, one of the 19 municipalities of the Brussels region. And it's also very important, I think, there is a real support of the municipality, thinking that our museum can't be an elitist institution. And when you have that, I think then you have the support of your public authorities, you have the support of your director. I think a lot of things are really possible then. And as we are also not the biggest fine arts museum here in Brussels, we have the colleagues of the Royal Museum of Fine Arts, very also interesting education team there to meet. But as we are not the biggest one, I think also that it was maybe in our DNA to look for experimentation and to try also really to have our own identity. And I mean, the closure helped us maybe to design this more regarding to the local community, but it was also an evolution in our museum field. So I think it was just like a natural evolution that we followed, but we were like already thinking about being active, very participative. Like, for example, we spoke about Museum Plein Herbe, the games that we use there. They were actually fought together with children. We had a project with a school, and we asked children, okay, what do you want to see at the Ixelles Museum when it will be reopened? And they said, oh, we want to play at the museum. And we said, okay, which kind of games or plays do we want to make? And then that's with their ideas that we came to that project, actually. And since Museum at Home, we are much more thinking like, okay, we really need the input of the audiences, and we can use it just to be more creative sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you can also be like the base start for pretty much everything. And I didn't expect that you were saying also about the games, because I participated in one of the Museum Plein Herbe session, and I saw like 10 games, and your colleagues were telling me that they're not every games, because there are, for example, the Twister. I didn't have the chance to try it because they didn't have the chance to put it outside, because there were other games. So I was like, oh, wow, how much time did they spend to develop all this game, the graphics, the idea, and everything else. But for example, for me, it didn't came right instantly in mind the fact that maybe they also asked to the community, or what they want to see. And even though, for example, you don't know where to start, it's always good to start from the community. So you starting from that, and then you can also you can also think about something that's ready much for you, and then you can restitute, or you can give it back as to the community. I wanted to ask you also if there is a project, even maybe in one of the three that we named today. Maybe there's a project that you liked it so much that you really want to make, I don't know, every day. Even a project maybe that you did before this museum. I don't know, everything that came to your mind that really resonate with you, and it lets you tell, wow, it would be so amazing to do that again and again, because it's like, no, my favorite project, for example. I don't know.
I'm not sure I will be so original, because I will speak you about the project on which we are really working hard at the moment. So it's not so far from me. It just like, so we had like last Friday a co-creation workshop with our guides or mediators, because we try also to co-create with the mediators, just to like a training, but also a very active one, to immerse them really in the concept of an activity. And here it is actually an outreach activity we do in nursing homes, but also in centers for mental health, for example. So we are going there. There is a mediator going there with a 3D parcours, 3D journey, just an easy one, like a Matterport one, like most of the museums have. Like with the, the estates, all the buildings and so on, they also use this. So it's just like actually a journey behind the scenes of the closed museum. And we start our animation with this. And afterwards, so it's really like, okay, for example, for all people, it's really a way to travel a little bit, because sometimes virtual things, tools, they seem a little bit like this kind is not so fantastic, so crazy when you go to young people with that, for example. But for all people, it's just like, oh, that's nice. I can work with you in the museum, and just very simple, but a wow effect for all people sometimes. And then and afterwards, the guide will then have an activity about 5 artworks, using a lot the interpretation of the people, their emotions, but also their senses. So it will also try to stimulate the senses, like, the smell, the maybe just having a sound, and actually that's really this kind of project is really touching me, because you really feel that it makes a difference when you go in this kind of place, and when you have that kind of privileged moments with a small group of people, and yes, I hope we will. So now we are really enlarging our mediators team to have more people able to give them, because we really think it's an important also target group. I don't like this term, but so and in the past we had not so many activities for more elderly people, and now we try to develop that also now. So that's this kind of project, but also more and more working about like emotional education, or maybe sensible mediation in French, just to give the people the opportunity to express their feelings in front of an artwork, and to help them to do that, because very often they think they are not legitimate, therefore. So just to give them tools to be able just to have a dialogue. We are also working, for example, on the labels that we have in our rooms. We try an experience with like 50 people writing themselves the text, the commentaries on the artwork, just by telling the story that they have in their mind when they see this artwork. And so we're really into this kind of experimentation at the moment, and I think it's really it's really so interesting and inspiring what we can do with that, I think.
You know what? I also think that this kind of project, and also I want to say that this kind of sensitive, emotional mediation is the first time that I hear someone saying it like this. So it's very interesting, and also it really can resonate with the fact that the people that actually do this job, that are working inside museum education, are still continuing to improve ourselves. I mean, we are continue in a continuous search of everything that can help us to relate to the person, to the people that comes in touch with the museums. And I think that this kind of mediation, it can be also useful from now to, I don't know, 5-10 years, to all the maybe the young generation that they grew up too much involved with technologies, with smartphones, social media, and stuff like this. And you see, we are seeing a lot of losing like sensitivity and the capacity of express emotion. So maybe it can also resonate with that kind of audience that today it's harder to see because small children, especially here in Belgium, are much more accustomed to, I mean, you can find in the park, but there are a lot of generation that you will not find in the park. So there will be some time that will come into a museum and they will not have maybe the capacity of express their emotions. So it can be very useful for not only the target that you were talking about, but also maybe a future target that we still don't know it. So it is really, I don't know if you ever thought about this.
Yeah, of course. I'm pretty sure of that. And what I spoke you about the activities we give, like in the nursing homes and so on. But for example, the experience with the labels, the participative labels, we did that also with young people and also with people having like a cognitive handicap. And it was really amazing how far they could go, and with sometimes less barriers than you would have when you think you have to know things and so on. So it was very rich. But also, for example, we did that with during writing sessions, so writing workshops. And I really think also that it's something that we will implement in our cultural program for the future, because they were like 2 hours writing together with really also a very nice mediator who could also really good stimulate the people, and they felt really at ease with her, and actually that was so nice. Or also the connection they had together afterwards. And that's actually the start of our talk today. Is really the idea of museum education can really create connection between people, and I could really feel that when we made these writing sessions, that the people were really, it was really like a human encounter, really. Just so that was so nice. And with the artwork in the middle, also like you have a museum at home, it's also that nice to see people going to the house of their neighbors, and for the first time they dare to speak because there is an artwork, and then you have actually the pretext just to say, okay, hello, I'm your neighbor, and actually it's a long time ago that I see you, but no, it's permitted all of a sudden. So that's we can do a lot with our museum objects, and that's amazing.
I also like the fact that you are calling those museums object and not like because, for example, in Italy we are really obsessed about the piece of art, the piece of archaeology, but in fact they're still objects. So I mean, the museum should be for the people, not for the object. The object is there like how we reach people, and how people really reach the object. So it's a relation, like we were saying. Okay, Stephanie, I just want to ask you one last thing, which is a very light thing. Don't worry, it will be not so much hard, I hope. And it is maybe tips for everyone that is making this job, or maybe that want to study and trying to do this job in this field. It can be a book, a TV show, a podcast, anything that you can think and that can maybe help people. That, this podcast is usually listened by people that work in this sector, so maybe something that can enhance their job.
Yes, maybe I can speak about the participatory museum of Nina Simon. For me, it was really like a discovery when I read that, because we were quite at the very beginning of Museum at Home, and it was so crazy how I could find very interesting tools and also like perceptions in this book. For example, the fact that when you need to make an evaluation for a participatory project, that maybe you need really totally other criteria than you would have for like a classic museum activity. And when I really remember that she wrote that, for example, when you have a group and like the neighbors of Museum at Home, and they're asking you, okay, we want more from you, we want to do other things with you, then it's a little bit like warm. And then, for example, for Museum at Home, the neighbors, because at the end of the weekend, we have always a dinner together just to relax and to say, the artworks are back in the museum, everything is fine, we are happy, we had a good time, and now we just we will eat together and also meet, because that's also the idea for the neighborhood, to meet during that event. And then after that dinner, it is always too short, and they say, oh, we want more, we would like also to have another activity together that could be organized by the museum. And then we said, okay, then we will do like each year a neighbor's barbecue. And so we do that. It's really an auberge espagnole, so people bring their own meat, vegetables, and so on. So it costs not a lot, but it's here, and then it makes that people are happy to come. And for us, it's also a way to explain other projects we have, and just to hold the connection with them. But that was so nice to read that, because then I had something like, oh yes, maybe that's a good sign that we are on a good way. So I think this kind of book is really interesting, because it's a little bit out of the common lines and very interesting for us, I think. But otherwise, I also like very much the Art Engager podcast of Claire Bowen, for example. So also a very inspiring person to listen to and to follow. So that's it.
We can sponsor also the fact that she is about to publish a book, so she is not paying us. We just love her, so it's good to make her publicity. Okay, Stephanie, I think we said a lot of things. I really want to thank you for having me here and for letting me to I don't want to say interview you, but having a dialogue with you and sharing with also other people, because we had something similar like a month ago, but it was like for within us too. But sharing with the other people online, I think it would be a very amazing thing to do. And I also hope that you are happy with this dialogue, and I really cannot thank you enough.
It's very nice also to reflect a little bit on what we are doing. So yeah, thank you a lot, and I like your podcast. It was also interesting for me to listen to the English ones. Sorry for my Italian, I need to improve that. But thank you, Alberto. That was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, I will say goodbye to Stephanie. So I will leave here, and then I will hand the podcast in another time. So thank you, Stephanie, and I hope we'll see each other very soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bene, per questo episodio è tutto. Io in realtà sono stato molto felice di registrare questo episodio, perché l'ho potuto registrare in presenza, che ce ne sono pochi di episodi di questo tipo, ma è sempre un grandissimo piacere. Io vi ricordo che il podcast è un progetto totalmente autoprodotto, ma potete supportarlo anche economicamente offrendomi un caffettino grazie al link in descrizione, dove trovate tutte quante le cose, tra cui anche canali social, quindi anche Instagram e insomma tutte queste cose qui, per potermi seguire e restare sempre aggiornati e aggiornate su tutte le novità e tutte le cose, la maggior parte delle quali sono l'episodio non esce questa settimana, uscirà la prossima settimana, quindi saprete quando non uscirà un episodio. Uscirà, ho detto, uscirà, va bene. Vi ricordo inoltre che potete iscrivervi al gruppo Telegram, dove ci sono un sacco di persone che fanno questo lavoro, giovani, persone che fanno questo lavoro da più tempo, insomma c'è un po' di tutto, e su cui molto spesso, soprattutto recentemente, proponiamo insomma e lanciamo in questo gruppo tutte quelle che sono le offerte di lavoro che troviamo che possono interessarci. Vi ricordo inoltre che naturalmente trovate nella descrizione dell'episodio tutte quante le cose di cui abbiamo parlato in questo episodio, link, libri, eccetera eccetera. Noi ci vediamo nel prossimo episodio, stavolta non vi dico fra 2 settimane, fra una settimana, perché il trend sta diventando quello di no, dirà, purtroppo non riesce ad uscire l'episodio, quindi io vi dico al prossimo episodio, se basta, insomma vi dico soltanto questo. Seguitemi su Instagram per restare aggiornati su quando effettivamente l'episodio verrà pubblicato, e noi dunque ci vediamo su Instagram e nel prossimo episodio. Io vi auguro una buona domenica e niente, bene così, ciao!